today, Hannah?
We're reading Every Day by David Levithan. I want to read this. If you believe the devil is within you, click here or call this number. Gretchen, is the devil within you?
Well, I mean, not today.
There is a consciousness, and her name is A. Its name is A. There's a consciousness that wakes up in somebody's body every day. And every day is a different person. And where the book takes off is that A falls in love with the girlfriend of one of the boys that he wakes up in the body of one day.
And then it's all about getting back to her.
And it's all about getting back to her. Love at first sight. What did you think?
For it being more on the contemporary side, I didn't hate it. I should explain, I think contemporary fiction sort of lives in its own little, like, this is contemporary world, and it doesn't, that contemporary world really rarely has anything.
You mean it's not a real world?
It's not a real world. It's like the way we think high school exists and the way we think the world really is, but really has nothing to do with how the world really is.
It's kind of a caricature of reality in a lot of ways.
And I felt that this was very, for even having this sort of magical, realism element, it was very real, very grounded in reality, which I liked. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting to.
It felt real. I mean, for me, I'm kind of a character nerd. I love interesting personalities and getting into someone else's head, and that's part of the reason I love YA is because it really does that well, and because it focuses on coming of age issues. You have a lot of interesting, unreliable narrators and like diverse personalities, and then the situations that those personalities cause or get themselves into is, where the plot is driven by. I also really liked Rhiannon.
She was, I would have to say, refreshing. She's the love interest.
Yeah, Rhiannon's awesome.
She's cool. I feel like because she felt so real and the world felt so real, I could buy sort of this pseudo fantastic, I'm in a different kid every day body type of thing. And she was great. I mean, she was probably one of the most well-developed female protagonists I've seen today.
Yeah, it easily passes the Bechdel test.
Absolutely.
Rhiannon is not your strong girl or your girly girl or your victim or your like dominant popular person. She is actually like well-rounded and diverse. She is strong and she is a survivor and she is girly and she is assertive, and at the end there's a really big plot twist at the end. Should we give it away?
I don't know. Maybe we should spoiler alert this. Like,
okay, spoiler alert.
We will be giving away things.
We will be so there's basically A is not the only person like this. There are other souls that can inhabit other people's bodies day to day, and he doesn't discover this until the very end when he discovers a pastor who has been possessed by one of these other consciousnesses. And so the thing is, he is asking, like, he wants to stay in one body so he can be with Rhiannon, and the pastor's like, well, there's a way to do that, and he realizes that the way to do that is to
basically kill somebody else.
Basically, like,
I feel like that to me was where the magical realism stumbles, because in more of a fantasy book, I feel like that would have been introduced way earlier.
That's a whole
book. That's a whole like conundrum.
It's a whole book in and of itself.
And I feel like I really wish we would have wrestled with that question a little bit more. Of like, how far are you willing to go for love?
Emotional space. He doesn't have any relationships. He doesn't have any sort of outlet. He doesn't have any friends. And I keep saying he.
Right, which is one of the things that we wrestled with.
Okay, so here's the thing. A is introduced to us as a male in the first day that we meet A.
Yeah, because we're introduced to him as a male, I feel that made me think of him as a male.
Right, and because of a rom-com trope, I feel like A is a male. But we had a friend who read it.
Yeah, he read it, and he was like, "No, A is a girl," and we were like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah. So I think kudos to Levithan for making that
actually a thing.
Yeah, it's a conflict for us to try to decide, and that's good. That's how it should be. The tension is great.
So now it's the time for where we talk about what we had problems with, or what we maybe are critiquing this time around. Which I think it's hard because there's so much there's so much I think that he does really well, but sometimes the parts where...
Yeah, we actually kind of had some problems coming up with some tropes for this one.
Yeah.
So, that is a
good sign.
A great sign. Okay, so the first problem...
is my problem, which I'm always going to harp on.
Okay, so, trope alert!
Which is, today, it is YA Insta-love.
AKA love at first sight / like...
everything. I mean, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, Insta-love to me is something, even when I had it as a high school student, or in my teenage years. I had Insta-love. But it was like, I Insta-loved...
I think this is technically called infatuation.
Infatuation.
Yeah.
But, like, I Insta-loved people like the lead singer on the Backstreet Boys or something. Like, woo, hotness. Hot and bothered now. Like, I never really Insta-loved people who I actually, like, people who were actually attainable.
Yeah.
So, like, Insta-love was something that happened on a scale of, like, impossibility.
Insta-love is something that happens when you don't actually understand the essence of that other person.
Yeah, it's just,
it's the idea of that person is something that you, like, click onto and get attached to, and it can only be, like, the relationship or the romance of it can only be sustained as long as that person remains like an idea.
As long as the person remains on their pedestal, the Insta-love is secure in itself. Once you sort of bring that person down off of that, I think it then becomes real. Which I think is why we had trouble with this, is because Rhiannon gets knocked off her pedestal.
Yeah, it's Rhiannon be a whole character and a whole person, and
then makes A realize that maybe she's not everything he's built her up to be.
Which is actually kind of the beginning of the end, and not in the end of, like, he stops being in love with her, but his selfishness has to end, which is great. Which
is cool. So, I mean, while it's a trope and it's there, I think he does a good job of turning a trope on its head, which is always when a trope succeeds.
Right. The next trope that this brings me to is, trope alert!
Trope alert!
The stalker is... Stalking someone is romantic.
So creepy.
The stalking someone as a romantic thing, and then the, like, no means try harder, is something that, because it's such a trope that permeates romance media,
and we consider it normal anymore.
And we consider it normal, and we consider it like a chivalrous thing. Actually, like, no means try harder, which perpetuates rape culture. I mean, it means that if the girl says no, it means
keep going,
romance me more, or be more aggressive, or try harder, and that's scary.
It's scary. It's scary that like, which is maybe why we thought A was a boy, because A just keeps going for it.
Yeah. So
even after Rhiannon is kind of like, hey, not okay.
Right. So this is why I think A is probably a boy, because it plays into that trope of the guy has to control the relationship.
And he does.
Trope alert! Overprotective male. Overprotective male as the love interest controls the situation regardless of the wishes of the other. These things are very, very enmeshed. You get Rhiannon is dating someone else. This is how he meets her, because he is in the body of her boyfriend.
And then he, like, takes over the body for the day and like, suddenly wants to become in control of the relationship.
So he does everything to try to keep Justin from staying with her. He's
decided without actually knowing Justin that Justin is an asshole and Justin isn't worthy of his relationship, no matter how many times Rhiannon tries to tell him, you don't understand us.
Right. Stalker knows best.
Stalker knows best.
Trope alert! So, codependency is a healthy relationship norm.
Ugh.
Ooh,
not
so
really.
Bad.
Codependency. I mean, A can't really help but being codependent once he strikes a relationship.
He's emotionally a child, and so this is going to be a hazard of it. But it's also a hazard of the genre, because codependency, like the emotional, like depending on someone emotionally for your everything, is translated as true love in most YA or rom-com situations.
It's unhealthy because I feel like it teaches people that the only way for like self-actualization isn't actually to understand yourself and know yourself, but that the only way to complete yourself is to completely rely on somebody else.
Trope alert!
Okay, so it is the Non-existent parents. I think we're pretty much gonna have this, I think, in every book that we read. Kind of because of the same thing that we brought up in the last video that we talked about this in The Fault in Our Stars. Is that the genre as a whole, I feel, feels like that it can't exist where parents exist. That a YA journey can't exist when parents actually get involved, right. Which I think is incorrect.
Somebody else's world for a day, and you have a lot of parents.
You have a lot of parents,
and there are very few who actually care or are involved, and that
to me felt really. I mean, it felt as off.
Who do care? One is a character that we see a lot. Nathan, his parents are super involved, and we see like the one girl who had the suicide attempt.
Yeah,
or the car accident.
The car accident. We have the car accident parents, and we have the parent who's sort of like gets involved, which is another. I guess we could go back.
The suicide attempt.
Yeah, the suicide.
There are a couple that like.
But non-existent parents. It's kind of. I feel like if you threw parents in the mix of some of these stories could get so much more interesting and so much more real, almost instantly.
Yeah, it was kind of the thing that felt like the most off was just like the next thing. You have a problem that you want to talk about.
I do have a problem that I want to talk about. This is always, I always have to warn you, I guess. I feel like I should warn people. This is kind of like why it has no parents. The other thing that Gretchen always harps on is, if we're going to talk diversity, I feel like we really need to talk diversity. And I think this book does a great job of addressing, like, LGBTQ issues, which I thought was great. It also has a really great response to race. Mm-hmm. I feel like we see a lot.
So Levithan really tried here. And
he really tried.
He really covered his bases, and I feel like he did pretty well with representing a lot of things.
20% of the population in America is disabled. Even within my own high school, I can think of easily 3 or 4 other people who were disabled in my high school.
Yeah.
So the idea that he's never, I mean, he mentions once or twice. He mentions the blind girl. He mentions the blind girl offhandedly. But the idea that he's never going to experience that again, or it's a rarity, to me is really off-putting and really downplays something. We're not giving stars here, but I liked it. I would say read it.
Yeah.
Woo! All right.
Okay. Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Pressure.
I sound like Johnny Cash or something, or somebody who smoked a lot.
It's a pack a day.
It's okay. So, this book.
You have no soul.
So, this is one of the tropes.
Wait, hold on. Say that again. That was like really deep. Say it again. Do it again to the camera, because I'm like, mind is against the wall now, because Hannah just blew my mind.
Okay.